Long before we all carried plastic water bottles, there was the hip flask. It was carried and concealed in a pocket. But unlike the water bottle or the earlier canteen, the flask was used for carrying a very different kind of refreshment. Lashings of your favourite tipple. In the early 18th century, the sophisticated and well-to-do carried elegant flasks crafted from silver or pewter. But in today's world, flasks are generally given as gifts, typically engraved with monograms or messages. Pewter is an ideal metal for flask making because it's so malleable. The manufacturing begins with a sheet of raw pewter that's about 2 millimeters thick. A guillotine cutter slices a rectangular starting piece, which is called a blank. The blank is laid onto a copper plate, which has the flask's decorations on it in raised form. The plate and blank then go through a rolling press, and the compression stamps the design into the malleable pewter. The decorated blank goes into a hydraulic press, fitted with forming guys, and in a single strike, the blank is shaped into half a flask. A trim press clips off the excess pewter around the perimeter. Repeating the entire process produces the other half of the flask, and the two parts are soldered together. Some flasks are styled manually. A metalsmith heats the blank with a gas torch to make the pewter pliable, and then wraps it around a flask-shaped aluminium block. He hammers the adjoining edges flat with a wooden mallet, and fuses the edges by running a line of pure tin solder down the entire length of the joint. On another press, workers stamp out pewter sheet rectangles which will complete the flask's shape. The metalsmith solders one rectangle to the top of the flask, then cuts it to the right shape. A pewter thread is then added to make the cap. Before fusing another rectangle to the bottom of the flask, the worker stamps it with the maker's mark and dabs the bottom of the flask in flux. Flux is a chemical which helps solder run smoothly without globs. The bottom is then soldered to the flask and the craftsman contours it. Next, he puts a drill through the cap thread and bores a hole for filling. Then, with an abrasive belt, he grinds all the solder seams flat, making them barely visible. The finished flasks are filled with water to check for leaks and clean the interior. Pewter caps are then screwed on. Now a buffer takes over. With a cloth wheel and pumice, he removes any little imperfections from the surface. Once the buffing's complete, the flasks go through a wash cycle to clean off pumice residue. Now the finishing touch. A polisher shines up the pewter until it has a reflective mirror finish. The flask is then emptied of any water that's still left inside, readying it for its new role. No longer concealed under clothing ready for a crafty sip of something, these modern-day pewter flasks are meant to be seen and treasured.